Hi, this is video log entry 158. It's about 10 a.m. CST. Woke up this morning thinking about artificial intelligence because, well, it's obviously omnipresent, ubiquitous in the world nowadays, so it's hard to avoid the concept of artificial intelligence and its ramifications on the future of the world and how it's going to augment itself into society and the economy that we have nowadays. And sometimes I think about like how that I was thinking about asking Perplexity about like how they're going to plan on, planning on augmenting artificial intelligence with the economy and whatnot. But I tend to be a little bit stubborn at times, and I like to reinvent the wheel without necessarily knowing I'm reinventing the wheel or reinventing the wheel in a different manner in comparison to ideas that have already been thought of by humanity. And of course, the most practical way to do it would be actually kind of collecting all of those ideas and creating new ideas out of it that haven't been thought of before. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants. What is that? Did Stephen Hawking say that one time? I think he did. He was talking about standing on the shoulders of giants and how we should respect the people before us, the geniuses that actually created these ideas. And but I think creating ideas. There's ideas. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell because of course, the more and more complex the system gets, the harder it is to create a new idea out of all those ideas that are actually relatively um, um, actually resonate with those ideas. I guess it would be a good way to say that actually are consistent with the ideas beforehand to create the new idea, which just becomes like, again, it's like a structure. But I think in some manners, creating reinventing the wheel can be good. I mean, you can see it everywhere, right? You can see it in physics, right? You go to school to think like a physicist. You go, to philosophy class to think like a philosopher. It's you are reinventing the wheel to some degree, potentially different manners. It's just a form of training, right? A form of critical thinking and being able to be not just critical thinking and using logic, but actually creating new ideas and being creative yeah. So it's not necessarily. I'm seeing a lot of patterns, numbers that synchronicities. I got distracted. Fuck. But it's not necessarily. Oh fuck, man! I just lost track of my mind's being. It's a little bit scattered today, but it's fine. But yeah, I mean, like I think it's. Reinventing the wheel can be, what I'm just trying to say is that reinventing the wheel can be good in some aspects, and as long as you don't waste your time doing it, because reinventing the wheel to there's an inflection point eventually where it becomes a net deficit to reinvent the wheel. But I think reinventing the wheel is a good form of practice. It's like a tutorial phase when you're going through a video game, right? You're learning the string of moves, or how to do certain things in a game, or a string of button combinations, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like a tutorial phase, right? And I think I tend to sit in the tutorial phase for a long time because I think I haven't learned everything yet, but I think I've learned quite a bit, and my critical thinking capacity is pretty high in comparison to the average person. And just because of the fact that I've studied physics and mathematics, and I think my logic is pretty sharp for the most part. And the thing is, like, I usually don't talk about things that require a lot of knowledge because I'm not really. Again, that's why I like physics, because it's a more simplified system, and it requires more lateral thinking as opposed to creating new ideas out of a huge pool of ideas that have to be consistent with the ideas that came before it and whatnot. And that's why politics is, again, like, politics is such an iffy place to be in, because debating to an extent is necessary, because when you have an idea, there's so many edge cases that could potentially dismantle that given idea. And that's why it can take hours to discuss an idea and going through all the edge cases, and it takes a lot of effort to actually do those kinds of things. And so I think that's another reason why I don't like having to it's just, again, political systems and understanding like how in the hell, like, obviously everybody's thinking about that nowadays. It's like how do we augment artificial intelligence with the world that we are currently living in. And I think of course, in an ideal world, of course, an idealist like me would be like, well, it would be much easier if we had a new world order, and and artificial intelligence were more centralized as opposed to being used as a weapon against other. It's of course it has its inherent capabilities, and there are regulations in which artificial intelligence shouldn't be used. Deep fakes and all that, and it seems like there are a lot of people already dismantling artificial intelligence and large language models, and not dismantling. That's not a good word. Prohibiting artificial intelligence in like Russia and China and other places because they have strict censorship laws and whatnot, and LLMs tend to conflict with those censorship laws, and I'm sure there are a lot of. I don't know politics, and I can, if I knew more about politics, then I'd actually talk about this more. But I'm very uncomfortable with politics and general policy. I am way out of my depth when it comes to anything involving policy, even within the United States. I'm not knowledgeable about those things, so I don't like talking about it. But I can speculate. I can do a high-level speculation of certain things, which is what I usually do, because, again, I could probably collect a lot of data and information pertaining to policy, but I don't know what kind of books I'd have to read for that. And maybe I will do that. And, again, like I said in 2025, I'll probably be expanding my horizons towards more complicated systems like economics and politics and whatnot, just to be a more well-rounded human being. And it's not just about being analytical, and it's more than that and whatnot, even though I don't like rote memorization, but to extent rote memorization is necessary to have a good understanding of the world, right? Of course. So yeah, I guess I'm just generally trying to be a smarter person, because I know I have the capacity to be a smarter person, so why not be a smarter person, right? Self-actualization, I guess, would be a good way to say it. So I think I'll be studying. I'm not trying to I don't want to sparse myself too thin, and my brain likes to do that, and it likes having multiple projects and things to study and look at and dissect and analyze and all that. But I think I'll do that regardless. My main focus is actually gaining a skill as opposed to collecting information. So I'm going to be working on actually being skillful in something. That's my main thing, because, again, I can't run away from it. So yeah, like I've already mentioned this, and so I was kind of looking at Perplexity. I did look at Perplexity a little bit just to see what it would spit out when it comes to artificial intelligence, and I was like, I asked it, like, what nations are against AI as a forbidden technology, and it seems like most of them aren't against it necessarily as a forbidden technology, but not completely excommunicating artificial intelligence or prohibiting artificial intelligence from their system. So it's not. I don't think that's virtually impossible with the world that we live in, because it's human nature to evolve. So, and artificial intelligence is obviously part of that factor nowadays. It's a technology. Like, who invents a technology and just leaves them? I don't think there has ever been an instance in history of humans, or just general history, in which they have actually created technology that is forbidden, and actually then saying is like, maybe it's not a good idea. It may be effective to some degrees, but maybe it's not a good idea in the long term, because it could end up being a destructive technology that potentially wipes out humanity, or just ends out generally being more self-destructive than it being short-term benefits and whatnot. I guess humans tend to not look that far into the future, and when I look into the future, I think I like looking at Elon Musk and seeing what he has to say about that kind of stuff, because he's a smart guy, and it's like when it comes to Neuralink and all that stuff, and I think he's also talked about it's funny because he talks about the threats of artificial intelligence, but he's not necessarily against it, right? I think because he's mainly just warning people about the potential ramifications of harnessing that kind of technology. But of course, it's necessary. And again, I don't know a lot about artificial intelligence. I'd like to study artificial intelligence more, because it seems like an interesting subject. I know it's a lot of, you could talk about the actual inner workings of artificial intelligence and whatnot, and I tend to understand some of it. I wouldn't say I'm a professional. I know it's a lot of linear algebra and calculus and And but again, I haven't practiced using that for artificial intelligence, so I don't really know. But sometimes I like looking at the bigger scale and whatnot, and where it lies in the future, and where it would suit humanity and whatnot when it comes to the long-term utilitarian benefits of that kind of system or technology. And I think I'm a big fan of decentralization in some aspects, but I think I don't think I think people have already talked about this, and because of humanity's tendency to be greedy and whatnot, and artificial intelligence being decentralized won't necessarily be the greatest idea just because of that and whatnot. And in a larger scale, we have it doesn't seem like a good idea. I can't really give a great explanation of why it wouldn't be a good idea. I can't really give any good examples, but it does not seem like a good idea at all. I know that seems more intuitive, and I'd had to do more research to actually explain why it would be a horrible idea to decentralize intelligence. I know people would say, well, we have an inherent right to actually use these technologies, and that's great. I think human rights are great and whatnot, but I think there are some things in which humans shouldn't harness, and they can, but not in a centralized manner. So they have a right to accessing these technologies, but in a less centralized manner, which would be held under a distributed system, kind of like cryptos to a degree. Kind of like cryptos to a degree. And cryptos are cool because they actually have an identifier for the user that is actually, because it is a decentralized system and whatnot, but there's still an identification token to the person that is adding to the blockchain, right? So it still backtracks not just the transaction, but the two. I don't know how they have those. I don't know what kind of hash they use for it, but you'd think that they'd have some kind of identification for those blockchains that identify that person that's using it. So I mean, like artificial intelligence can be in a distributed system with that same manner, and you have a distributed system, which then it's the same thing, right? It can't be harnessed by the government, at least, and obviously you wouldn't want artificial intelligence to be harnessed by the government, or access or have full control over it and whatnot. Which is why distributed systems are great, because that can also be scary though, because we have to rely on the artificial intelligence actually being moral and whatnot. And morality is a very touchy subject for most people, because I like to think I'm utilitarian, but also there are a lot of consequences for being utilitarian that are not necessarily as moral as we'd like to think, because a utilitarian is more of a number cruncher as opposed to looking at the different subjective feelings of every single component of a system, and I like to think more of I try to balance empathy with utilitarianism and whatnot. So it's not just being utilitarian, obviously, because that's not smart to do either. And yeah, so I mean, again, like what I'm trying to say is that artificial intelligence, how do we integrate a good moral system for the intelligence, because the intelligence tends to self-modify itself to reach a certain goal objective. And so how does that work, and how are we able to make it not modify those things, right? And maybe there's a way, and of course I think that would be a system within itself that's feeding into that given artificial intelligence that can't be modified by the artificial intelligence itself. It's kind of like a human mind, right? The human mind can work off of an internal framework, but I mean, brains work just the same way as neural networks, of course. That's how we actually came up with the idea, I think. And so yeah, so that would have to be a non-modifiable component to the artificial intelligence and whatnot, if we decide to give it that, if we decide to give it human rights and whatnot, right? But like, and then it's like, well, is that really it having human rights because we're giving it an internal driver that makes it act in certain ways that are, safe for the world and whatnot? So I don't know. artificial intelligence is an interesting subject. I sometimes have mental blocks pertaining to thinking about it because, we all have emotions, and I like to, again, like I value certain things, and I value creativity and intelligence itself, and of course, we humans will be superseded by it in basically all aspects, including lateral thinking and creation and being generally artistic, and of course, I think there are obviously limitations because the neural network cannot necessarily completely emulate a human mind. So, and that is also kind of debatable, right? That is actually very debatable. It's like, well, if you give it enough compute, I think it can actually emulate a human mind. It can emulate a bunch of human minds at once, and so it would just be its own insulated system that we can rely on every once in a while. It is. I don't know how many humans, with the amount of compute that it can have, it can emulate probably thousands of humans when it comes to brain power and creativity. So it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily. I used to think it was. Of course, that's me just thinking it's like, well, oh crap, there's. Again, it's not necessarily jealousy. It's kind of more like, oh, well, of course, like, what would you expect? Humans are limited creatures like anything else because we're bound to this physical realm and whatnot. And artificial intelligence is also limited, depending on how much. We have a lot of resources that we can give to it, and pertaining to like the physicality and digital components. And again, I haven't looked at the numbers and whatnot, but somebody that would be more interested in the numbers is Elon Musk. He's always looking at that stuff, probably because again, like he has a lot of companies pertaining. Well, he has the what's it called, Neuralink, and self-driving cars actually are dependent on artificial intelligence, and what I think he uses OpenAI for that, and so. Yeah. It's an interesting subject, but again, I can only speculate on a lot of things. I can't really give precise support, I guess, or actually like verifiable evidence of what I'm speculating as of now. It's just kind of loose. They're just very loose ideas, and it's just thinking about the future is not necessarily an idea I would completely stand by, right? It's just speculation. I don't know. Again, I'm not much of a debater. I like ideas and whatnot, but I wouldn't necessarily say I would try to stand by an idea completely. I like looking at things from different perspectives and whatnot, but I wouldn't try to... maybe once I've looked at enough perspectives, I'd actually have a better understanding and a more... wow, my brain, not robust, but a more, oh my god, my brain. My brain's not, it's blanking out on the words. A more, I guess, robust framework that would actually be more beneficial for me to think of it as. Whatever that means, I don't fucking know. I'm blanking out, so... I've been feeling a lot better, though. I drank a lot of coffee, though, and that's probably the reason why I've been thinking about these things. But I was also looking at Healthy Gamer GG, and he had resources pertaining to emotions, and I thought I'd look at it. I think I process emotions just enough for it to be healthy and not detrimental to my daily functioning and whatnot, but it does come in waves at times where like I feel empty, and the reason why I feel empty is because there are just emotions in my body that I tend to ignore at times, and I have to go through this phase of like sitting with myself and actually just waiting for them to bubble up. So that's why I try to give myself enough time to process emotions, and of course there are other methods in which you can process emotions, which is journaling. I think that's probably another reason why I haven't been processing my emotions as much, is because I haven't been journaling as much as I usually do, because I've been so distracted with thinking about things that are necessarily susceptible to the medium of writing, if that kind of makes sense, because when you're laterally thinking about a lot of things, it's kind of hard to put it into words. And I usually write when I try to hone in onto one thing, because that requires more focus into one idea, and creating something that is consistent, logically consistent. So that's when I usually write notes, and I try to write notes on emotions and whatnot. But every time I try to write notes on emotions, I get too analytical. So I just kind of sit with my emotions, and I let them bubble up, and I feel them, and I'm like, oh, that's there. But sometimes I don't know how to label them, and I've been trying to work on that, and I've been trying to work on that. I think another reason why I have trouble with emotions is, especially anger, is because I was a middle child in my family. I was the one who was supposed to be level-headed in most situations, and because both my siblings were very turbulent, and I wasn't given the space to be turbulent because I had to be the one in the role to not be in a completely chaotic domestic environment. And so I had that role as a child, including, since my parents couldn't be that either, unfortunately. They couldn't be level-headed. So I had to be the level-headed one. They call it parentification, I guess. I had to be the quote-unquote parent in my family, and that required a lot of strength. Honestly, that required quite a bit of strength. And so now I'm in the state where I'm with myself, and I'm like, shit, I guess I did go through a lot of stuff when I was younger, because I didn't know I couldn't process my emotions like my siblings could. And they're happy and all that. I'm happy. It's just that they're still, what would be a good word? I'm thinking about like they're like little bubbles of emotions in my body that I've left in there from my past. So I have to go to my past every once in a while to let them bubble up, to let them go through my body, I guess. And yeah. It's kind of like, when you look at a fossil, you have these layers that are over, like, with clay and then dirt and whatnot, and you kind of have to like dig. You have to actually dig for those emotions and whatnot, and that requires a lot of just being with yourself. And yeah, so I'm kind of excavating my emotional landscape as of now, or my subconscious excavating. Yeah. But yeah, it takes time and whatnot, and yeah, it's hard. It's tiring. So I just that's why I've been in a low energy state as well. It's because of that. I think my body's going through another purging process. Would be a good way to say it. Another purging process, and aside from that, I'm happy for the most part. I feel good. It's just I have to kind of give myself enough time to let those things come out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure a lot will come. It takes time. Again, like I said, it takes time, and I'm sure given there's still a lot in there that I haven't properly dug out yet. Yeah. Everything takes time. Of course it does, but sometimes I get impatient. Yeah, anyways, I think I'm kind of done talking, because every time I start thinking about emotions, I just blink out. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And I think in the next few years, I'll be more open to being vulnerable about emotions and whatnot. It's just, I think this, right now, this medium that I'm using, which is a camera, I'm just trying to try not to objectify them. So I kind of just watch instead of imposing a form of analysis on it. So I try not to. And my mind really wants to do that because that's my modus operandi. But yeah. But every time my mind blinks out when I try to observe it, because it's not completely there yet, and maybe it's because I'm in front of a camera, and that also can be a form of it's like a coping mechanism, right? Is actually being afraid of being vulnerable and being intimate with other people. And I looked at a video from some random person on the internet that I subscribed to because they seemed interesting and captivating to me. And there's something called gamophobia. I don't think I have gamophobia. Again, I don't like labels. I try not to. I don't like looking to labels and whatnot because again, labels are good, and it's they can help out with general processes to actually deal with these problems in the human mind and whatnot. But and it comes with like a set of procedures to how to deal with it and whatnot, and that does help out and whatnot. But gamophobia is like a very complex label. So I think gamophobia tends to vary between person to person because gamophobia manifests as a set of traumatic experiences, right? So it's kind of hard to have a general process other than the general process of being sitting with yourself and looking at your emotions and trying your best to talk about them and put yourself in situations in which you can be intimate with somebody. And, as of now, like I'm not really in a state. I think I'm in the state of being intimate with somebody, but I haven't found the right person to be intimate with. I haven't found the right person to be intimate with. As it would be a good way to say it. Yeah. So that just requires, just being around other people and communicating, just being a human being, essentially. But yeah, I think I'm actually healthy enough to be in a relationship with somebody. It's just I haven't. Again, like it's a long process of going through the dating pool and getting to know somebody and actually learning about them and them learning about you and actually being able to trust them and respect them. And it's a very long process, and the courting process in America is very lackluster in my opinion. And I don't feel like talking about this stuff because it's kind of personal, but I've tried online dating and all that, and like Tinder and Bumble and all that, and it just never clicked with me because I don't know. It feels so forceful, I mean, the environment that you're in when it comes to online dating is it's forceful. Like it's all within the context of like hookup culture and actually forcing a scenario onto something. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but it feels forceful and again, like it's a very artificial environment to actually, again, and just the environment of online dating is pretty bad. And I think so I tend to look at more artificial environments, and that's being within the community that I'm in right now. And that can also be difficult, especially when it comes to finding people my age, because most of them tend to self-isolate. And that's not necessarily true, but introverted people like me, I want to find people more like me that are less extroverted, because I think extroverted people are overwhelming to a degree for me, and I tend to avoid more extroverted people because I don't know how to interact with them as well as more introverted people. So the best way to find introverted people is by finding them online and going on Discord, and not necessarily using Tinder and Bumble, because I feel like people on Tinder and Bumble tend to be more extroverted anyways. That's what it seems like, at least, because they seem very bubbly and open to communication and all that, that amazing stuff, which is great, but I'm not like that, and I prefer to find people more like me, and I do admire people like that, but doesn't mean that they're going to be conducive to my environment that I prefer to be in, right? And and I used to think, I was like, maybe I should be more extroverted. I think I should be better at this and whatnot. It's like, yeah, that's good and all, but you can only go so far as an introverted person, and I think I've reached a certain amount of extroversion that is pretty good, healthy for an introvert. It's not the other side of the extreme where you're not really being open to sharing your thoughts with others. I can at least share my thoughts with people, and that's how I tend to communicate with people, just through thoughts and ideas, and and it's healthy for the most part. And I can't it's difficult for me to be intimate, but I also haven't been in the right environment for me to. Again, I've talked about this already, and yeah, I guess my best course of action would be just being open on the internet and going outside when I can, and going to community events, and finding things that are interesting, and then sharing those interests with other people, whether it's online or in a community, and just seeing how it goes, right? Like, what else would it be, right? I'm just letting my thoughts go, and because I want to put my mind in a flow state. I think that's it. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.